Let's see, is it okay now? Hopefully. Sorry, I was getting like messages that my encoding was overloaded. So that's worrying. Like this computer has
Okay.
been having some slight issues, but hopefully it'll be fine. Anyway, let's go. If the VOD fucks up, the VOD fucks up. So where were we at? Oh yeah, Higu doesn't do that. um,
Okay.
so signs and banners crowded the roadside. Even reading the brush scroll words was daunting. It was as though where the road just changed was a border with a different country. At that moment, I was startled by the car suddenly braking. Looking ahead, a barricade had been erected. About 5 or 6 protesters, wearing masks and helmets to hide their faces, were blocking the road, yelling at us angrily to stop. What is this? A checkpoint? These guys never learn. Oishi
Get out
snort.
the pump guns. Sorry.
Oishi snorted as he rolled down the window and leaned out.
Oh, we have Oishi. That's cool.
Yeah, Mr. Delicious is
He's gonna.
already in.
Oh, he's gonna get to be so badass in this one, isn't he?
No.
Aww.
He is too rotund
Aw.
to be a true badass. Hey, 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 you guys, you can't be blocking the road like this here. As Oishi glared at them with a malicious laugh, they visibly faltered.
See, he's already being badass. I don't know what you're on about.
Clear the way. We can't get by like this. Who would have thought it was Oishi's car? That panicked thought seemed to make them lose their presence of mind. If we'd known it was your car, Detective Oishi, we wouldn't have been so rude. Detective, what happened to your usual car? Is it in for maintenance? Something like that. I just can't get used to this car they loaned me. Judging from their brief conversation, I could guess they were familiar with the license plate of the car Oishi normally used. In other words, if they knew the car belonged to the police, they would have hidden the barricade. What they were doing was obviously obstruction of traffic, a blatant crime. Who's that suspicious guy? You, could you show us your face? The man glared at me menacingly. Wearing a mask and sunglasses made me look particularly dubious. Would not showing my face get me into some unnecessary trouble? Yeah, Discord captures the mouse cursor. Most of the time I have it outside the window. But sometimes I have it inside the window. It's fine. I can't really change that behaviour to the best of my knowledge. I turned to Oishi to see what I should do. Give him a break. He's still a shy little rookie. We just wanted to make sure he wasn't anybody suspicious. Hinamizawa has been in a bit of a stir as of late. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? That mask you're wearing is way more suspicious. The men on Oishi continued to talk like that, feigning smiles at one another. However, from the beginning to the end, I couldn't get over the feeling that I was sitting on a powder keg. Has the number of trucks illegally dumping still not decreased? It's a real hassle dealing with it all the time. If the police could understand and cooperate, it would really help. During that conversation, the barricade was moved, leaving a gap wide enough for a single car to get through. Oishi lightly honked the horn once and began to roll the car forward. I could see the men's antagonistic glares at the back of the car in the rearview mirror. What was that just now? Blocking a public road like that? Of course it's a crime. Still, if you get worked up over that, it'll never end. Those guys, see, claim there's an infestation of trucks illegally dumping in the village. Their story goes that in order to stop that, they're halting suspicious vehicles for inspection. I don't think you can just do that as a civilian. Illegal dumping? Like corrupt contractors just tossing industrial waste away?
Price dumping, obviously.
Their line of argument is that if the police aren't going to do anything about it, they'll take matters into their own hands. Well, the industrial waste is just something they're doing by themselves anyway. By themselves? They have a pretty good strategy. You see, in order to hinder construction, they spread industrial waste over by the dam site. Then, blaming it on corrupt contractors, they start instituting these inspections. There, they stop every construction vehicle coming through and interfere with them as much as possible. So then, it's one of the methods the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance is using. So we might be seeing the origin of Reina's dump here. Reina's famous trash pile where she rescued Colonel Sanders. With that inspection just now, this car's license plate has probably been recorded. It shouldn't get stopped from here on out. Those guys know very well not to get me angry. See, rumour is that if they figure a car is related to the construction in some way, not only would there be checkpoints stopping it at every turn, but they'd be throwing rocks and planting road spikes as well. It's best you be careful so you're not identified. If they find out you're from public safety, who knows what you'll suffer through. Oishi was acting like we were talking about something fun, but for me, it was no laughing matter. It almost feels like we've wandered into a civil war in the Middle East. That's a good way of putting it. It's pretty much just what you said. Oishi turned to me with a grin and menacing laugh. You see, this here's a war zone. The car slowed down a bit as it went through a narrow road through some farmland. You see that house in the forest over there? That antiquated one. Looking at where Oishi was pointing, there certainly was an old, traditionally designed house. That belongs to the mayor, Old Man Kimiyoshi. You could say it belongs to the main Kimiyoshi house as well. There's a lot of branches, but there'd be one of the three families. The three families. The ancient families that control Hinamizawa. Metal Gear. That's right. And one of the others is the Furude family. Their house doesn't even have a single branch. All that's left is the head priest's family. Right over there, that's the shrine. He's the priest there. By the way, the Defense Alliance's office is on the grounds of that shrine. The office of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. If these guys were the enemy, that would make the shrine their stronghold. Can we go look over there? The shrine is the Furude family's private property, you see. Being police, we can't set foot there without a warrant. See, they've got a member of the Diet with ties to the village backing them up. Basically, being the police has its strengths and weaknesses. So we're hearing this from Oishi, the dirty cop.
Well,
Who
that's the
apparently,
strengths.
well, I mean, it is the strength, but it's also the weakness. If he wasn't a cop and was just dirty, he could do a lot more in this particular instance.
I mean, yeah, he could go there, but he'd probably still get fucked up.
Well, you know, Oishi strikes me as the type who has his own gang of boys.
I guess, yeah.
Well, even when we talk about the three families, that's something from a long time ago. Way back when, those three families used to hold councils to decide things about the village. Meaning, it's different now? You've got a pretty good nose. That's what I expect from an academic. The car braked to a halt with a squeal. Ahead of where we were stopped was several signs. Private property beyond. No trespassing. Beware of poisonous snakes. Danger. High voltage. Turn back. Intruders will be charged an entry fee of 1 million yen. Signs were erected there with things like that written on them. The road was separated from the forest by a chain-link fence wrapped in barbed wire. Since this is private property, this is as far as we go. There's several surveillance cameras set up further in. Saying that we just got lost won't work with these guys. They're beyond here, right? The people currently controlling Hinamizawa and the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance were neither the Kimiyoshi nor the Furude family, but the last of the three. Yeah, beyond here is one of the three families, the Sonozaki family. They're the ones controlling Hinamizawa from the shadows. Among the list of executives recorded in the documents, the number of people with the last names from the three families were quite high. Of course, Sonozaki was no exception. However, at the top was the Kimiyoshi family. If the Kimiyoshi family seemed to be in charge, the rulers behind the scenes were the Sonozaki family. This double-layered structure implicitly told me that the village had both a light and a dark side. The current head of the Sonozaki family is an old lady named Oreo. She has enough clout that you could call her Empress Sonozaki. Be careful, she's no small fry. She's enough of a VIP that even the mayor of the city has to bow before her. Well, in Hinamizawa and the surrounding area, their relatives amount to a block of several thousand votes. No politician could show disrespect for that. Is the kanji actually Empress Sonozaki in there? Appa?
I'm more interested in what they translated as clout, but yeah, I think it says Son. Is that Sonozaki? Wait, Sonozaki. Oh yeah, Sonozaki. Ryoto Sonozaki. Yeah, that should. It's like it should be emperor or empress. I guess it's the same word.
Well,
Ten,
I
ten,
suppose
it should be tenno, right? Yeah, tenno.
I suppose traditionally, like, Japan has always had emperors rather than empresses.
Yeah, that's why I'm confused. Like it's. I was only this is what it says, and I was only used to this word as like referring to the actual emperor of Japan, as in like the title. but maybe that's why he's saying it. So he's kind of making fun of her. It's like, ha, she's kind of like the ruler of Hinamizawa.
I guess. Would you like to pick out the word for clout as well?
It's just Eikyo. It's just influence.
Fair.
No.
In other words, that would make her the actual leader of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance, right? You've got it. With those words, Oishi pulled out a well-worn cigarette box. The suspected kidnapping of the minister's grandchild and subsequent threats were these part of the hidden plot by the Onigafushi Defense Alliance in order to have the Hinamizawa Dam project cancelled? You came all the way from Tokyo to investigate this, didn't you? Huh? Yeah. That's right. Something the matter? Then... Is it related to that direct appeal incident with Minister Inukai? If that's the case, then public safety has them marked on a watch list? Something like that? Having you guess that so quickly makes it easy. While exhaling out cigarette smoke, Oishi smiled broadly, like I'd just pulled a good one on him. Or so I thought. His smile disappeared suddenly. That's a lie, isn't it? Huh? I mean, the direct appeal putting them on a watch list. That's a lie, isn't it? Oishi knew there was no way that Tokyo HQ would dispatch an investigator over something as minor as a direct appeal. If they were to dispatch someone, it had to be for a more dire reason. He had figured out as much. I thought of myself as the type of person who doesn't let things show on their face. In front of his watchful gaze, however, I felt that what I was thinking was completely laid bare. Oishi silently lit another cigarette, as if waiting for me to interject during this awkward pause. I see. So this was a veteran detective's way of getting someone to spill information. But as long as I realised this, there would be nothing more. If I didn't open my mouth, I wouldn't have to lose anything. All I had to do was stare out the window and enjoy the scenery until Oishi gave up. You really are bad at hiding things, you know. Being so young and earnest isn't so bad.
I like how he's just kind of like Keiichi at this moment, the new guy.
Yeah, he's a rookie and a newcomer to Hinamizawa, which is the same position. He's in the same position Keiichi is in. For most of the time we see him. Except this is like an adult. But interestingly, this I wanted to bring attention to this statement. As long as I realised this, there would be nothing more.
Yeah.
This is not really true when you are being investigated by a competent, investigator. Like they use psychological techniques to break you down, whether you know they're doing it or not.
Yeah.
And
that's why I said it's kind of like Keiichi. He thinks he's safe, but he's never safe.
Yeah. One of the I remember watching one of the documentaries that were popular on YouTube a while back, and it was of them tricking a policewoman, like a detective herself, into being in the interview chamber because she was like basically wanted for a murder. Like they had her under suspicion. And even though she's, like, seen the entire fucking handbook, like, she must have received the same training as them, like, it still worked on her. Like, they still got the confession in the end.
Crazy shit.
So, yeah, just knowing what someone is trying to do does not wholly insulate you from the intent behind that thing. At first I thought I won, but at the very least, Oishi had ascertained that I was hiding something, meaning that I might have ended up marching to his tune. Oishi started up the engine once again, and began to move the car. If you'd just been honest with me, I thought I might have been able to help you. How would you help? If the cat was out of the bag, I might as well use it to catch some mice. Well, this depends on what we're talking about, but I might be able to set you up with someone who's knowledgeable about the goings-on in Hinamizawa. An informant? I see. Is that what you call it? Why are you so interested in my case, Oishi-san? Well, I'm the same as you. Isn't it our business to know things? Being able to meet with Oishi's informant was an extremely compelling opportunity. We were looking to recruit someone familiar with the area to collaborate with for intelligence. In the end, there was no better method for finding people than asking. We were always taught, however, that the rank and file police were no better than monkeys. Okay. That's a little...
He's not wrong.
That's a little bit rough. Unlike us, they were careless with confidential cases. We looked down on them, like they'd run their mouth off in a drunken stupor. Oishi was an outlaw even amongst them, and here I was, lost on whether or not I should tell him about the kidnapping of the minister's grandson. This informant, exactly how knowledgeable are they about the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance? If you're from public safety, you'd know, wouldn't you? Something like this is something I can't just tell you. Protect your sources. That was the first principle of dealing with confidential information. In that regard, it seemed that Oishi wasn't one of those monkeys. Should I trust him, ask him for his help, or not? It's just that you work for the feds, and I work for the prefecture. I don't think that our jobs are that different. I think I can be of help. So I'm interested in, Rick Astley mode engaged. I'm interested is there an equivalent of the feds in Japanese?
It doesn't seem like he's saying that. Can you show me the English again? Oh, no. It just says, he literally just says, it looks like you're working for the country and I work for the prefecture.
Okay. I was wondering if, because, feds is kind of a derogatory slang term, if that makes any sense.
It doesn't really make sense in Japan either, right?
Yeah. So I was wondering if there was an equivalent to that.
No, it just says he works for the country. Or for the state, I guess you might translate it.
Yeah.
The kanji means kind of both.
But yeah, I always see feds as being kind of an aggressive American, dismissive kind of word.
It fits with Oishi's character, right? But at the same time...
it does fit with his character.
So put it in there, yeah.
I mean, I would say it's probably a pretty decent localization. It gets the intent of the character across, because he's very rough, he's very coarse, and he's kind of antagonistic to the, he's kind of an other. He's not one of the feds. He sees the feds as being something different, and they're hiding shit from him. So he's kind of this giving them the third degree. So I think it's a pretty decent localization. But in the modern era, he'd be like, "Oh, you're one of them glowies, ain't you?" However, I had trouble believing that this crafty old man would simply help me just like he claimed. I'd find it hard to believe that someone of your standing would help me out without strings attached. Oh cool, we get the smooth jazz theme again.
That have we had that before?
We have in this novel.
Oh, then I just didn't get to it yet.
It is honestly a bop.
It is pretty nice.
Well, it's not like I'm completely without an ulterior motive. As I recall, you guys have space in your budget allocated to pay informants, right? Something you don't need to submit a receipt for. Just a little bit of that would be the cost of meeting with the informant. In other words, give the compensation earmarked for the informant to you first? Well, it helps that the details of this deal are so clear-cut. He certainly was something else for being able to brazenly state his ulterior motive like this. Rather than him doing this out of the kindness of his heart, everything was a lot clearer if he was being compensated for this deal. I felt that he was the type of man who was good at these backroom dealings. Don't misunderstand me, please. It's not me who needs the money, it's the informant, okay? Well, in regards to the payment, I'll be handling the money. When do you want it? Right now would be good. If you don't have it on you, tomorrow works as well. I pulled out a wallet that was different from my personal one. The price was pretty much fixed depending on what kind of information I was paying for. In that case, the payment was up front. Also, considering the fact that I didn't know what kind of info I would get, I shouldn't pay too much. When I suggested that, Oishi suddenly stretched out his hand and tightly grasped the contents of the wallet. At times like this, it's best you not be so stingy. It's alright, it won't go to waste. I understand. I won't be stingy. And what kind of information are you looking for? Depending on what you want, how we approach this will probably change. You swear you won't spread this information to anybody else, Oishi-san? I can't swear as much. I'm the same as you. I can't withhold information obtained during the course of my duties. I got it, I swear. Nothing here gets said anywhere else. On top of that, thanks to you, I can pay back what I owe from my mahjong debts. In any case, I won't break a promise that involves money. I was still unsure if I should trust him until the very last moment, but in the end, I broke down. Oishi wasn't the type of guy I could trust 100%, but there was no mistaking he had access to underground information networks. In order to accomplish my mission swiftly, I needed his cooperation. I set my resolve. I'm investigating whether or not the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance is related to a certain incident. Certain incident? There's a possibility that the Minister of Construction, Inugai, is being coerced by someone. Saying there's a possibility is kind of a roundabout way of putting it. It appears there's a mole close to the Minister, and due to that mole, the Minister had been monitored quite thoroughly, and was seemingly forced to cede to their threats right away. None of this was reported to us or the police. I see. So that's why you're saying there's only a possibility he's been coerced. In that case, isn't it a little strange? If the Minister didn't report this to anybody, how did you guys know about this incident? If we didn't spy on the minister's private life, we would never have found out. I don't think we have to provide that explanation to the informant, so I'm omitting it. Oishi had apparently caught on, and quietly chuckled when I refused to explain. I see. There's a spy close to the minister, so public safety made it a highly classified investigation. That certainly isn't a very amicable story, is it? If this matter became public, not only would this affect the minister's political career, but the possibility of there being a shift in the political landscape is extremely high. If the perpetrator's aim is indeed that, then this could develop into a very grave situation. Well, with the government having development projects all over the country, they've butted heads with quite a few people. It wouldn't take much wrongdoing for the left-wing parties to suddenly garner more support.
Always those pesky left-wing parties.
Is left-wing the same in Japan as it is in the rest of the world?
Oh, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, because Japan in the 90s, in the 70s, was very worried about communists in particular. So, let me take a look.
Yeah, I know that, like, the degree of the political spectrum tends to be very different depending on, like, what country you're in when you talk about it.
Yeah.
For example, a somewhat contemporary example might be that, on average, the UK is probably more right-wing than left-wing, right? And has been getting more populist. However, compared to a place like Poland, we are decidedly left of centre for them.
You're gonna give me that L?
But
Oh,
yeah,
it's
it's
becoming.
like actual, even like the left wing of the like the UK and America don't really approach like true left wing policies in a lot of cases. Like they're just centre justified. But I'm not sure how it was in Japan at this period of time.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of. I think they were pretty centrist about a lot of things. Like to us, that would probably to them it would be centrist. To us, it would probably be kind of socially conservative. But like there was like a I forget exactly what it was, but there were kind of people, like especially young people in Japan. There was a movement that was not as strong as the kind of 68 peace movement, things like that. But there were young people who kind of got together under the idea of we want to reform the government, we want to or even overthrow the government, things like that. Um, and there was a time where there was kind of a communist scare, like there was in America in the 50s or something, that was also in Japan.
I see.
But I don't know the details. Like you probably could ask Kolikawa about that if you were interested and if she was still around. She could tell you more. But press the L button. I want to see what they actually say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wow, it is just left parties. I would have assumed this would have been like communist, but maybe they don't want to like directly use the term. Maybe either the author or the characters. But yeah, there is like even currently there is still a communist party in Japan that actually holds communist values, and like their party program literally says we want to um abolish, but not directly abolish democracy, but it's like we want to rethink democracy in a way that realizes the values of communism.
Yeah, but just because the party exists doesn't mean it's meaningful, if that makes any sense. Like
No, that's true, but
I'm sure like there are communist parties in the UK that exist, but they have so little influence that they don't functionally exist.
they are in the diet, I'm pretty sure. Like they have their steady 7 or 8% that support them. Let's see. 7%, yeah. Yeah, they were much bigger in the 70s as well.
Mm. Well, let's carry on.
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's the tangents are the best part. We're currently investigating what demands are being forced on the minister, but at least we have a good idea of how he's being threatened. How? The minister's grandson was kidnapped. They're denying it, but judging from when he was last seen, it's believed it's already been over 72 hours since the kidnapping. So, 3 days. If it were just after ransom money, this would have been settled by now. It may be that this wasn't for monetary gain. The possibility that they're forcing the minister to do something politically is extremely high. That's something we just can't consent to. So then, the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance was listed as one of the possible perpetrators. That is correct. Kidnap the minister's grandson and demand the cancellation of the dam project. What do you think, Oishi-san? From your point of view, do you think that's possible? Oishi seemed to ponder the idea for a while. The section chief at the regional office had responded immediately with, "It's possible." However, Oishi, who was this well informed about the matter, was hemming and hawing. Finally, just a little bit. He said something that was really just a little bit strange. This was before the Meiji era, you see.
Oh boy.
This area wasn't called Hinamizawa Village back then. It was called Onigafuchi. Oh, here we go. We get the once a game history lesson.
Yeah.
This is just what I heard from my grandmother. This topic was so completely and suddenly unrelated to the subject of the kidnapping of the minister's grandson that I was taken slightly aback. Onigafuchi? Oh, so that's why they're called the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. You see, the village of Onigafuchi was said to be inhabited by demons that devoured humans. Even now, it's believed that the blood of these demons partially courses through the veins of the villagers. Demons that devour humans? Oishi-san, what are you saying? It's information. I got a lot from you just now. A little too much. In exchange, I'm giving you a little freebie. Oishi finally smiled, but it didn't seem like he was fooling around. Please, continue. You see, these human-devouring demons, normally they were revered as Taoist transcendents and lived tucked away from the rest of the world. So they were essentially Futanabe no Mika? Is it Mika?
Miko. So it's not Futanabe, is it?
No, it's Futanabe, I think.
Something like that.
Futanari is completely different.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I didn't say that, but...
I know, I thought you said Futanabe. But it's not... Oh my god. No, it's Toya Satomimi no Miko. I don't know where you got the Futanabe or whatever from.
I'm talking about
this girl, right?
the plate lady.
Plate?
Yeah. Miko's direct underling.
Oh! Well, she's also a hermit, so...
Yeah.
Underling.
God, what is her name, though?
Mononobe no Futo.
Oh. Where did I get Futanabe from, then?
Probably a good conjunction of Miko and Futo and something else.
Hi.
She
Hi.
doesn't usually stand out to me apart from when she's setting fire to things,
Ah, yes.
which is apparently her job.
I have a question for you, boss man.
Yes, what is up?
Do you take more than one prompt on Twitter for a person, or do you just take single ones?
It does not matter at all.
Okay.
If I
I
have
might do
too,
some ideas later then.
yeah, if I have too many, I'll just discard the ones I don't want to do.
Okay. Enjoy yourselves then.
Thanks for
We do be
checking in.
chilling.
See you later, Whiskas.
See you later.
Ta-ra. What are we doing? But they ate people after all, so apparently they go to the villages in the foothills regularly and abduct their prey. Actually, that's a fair question. What was the I'm interested in what the word for like human devouring would be.
I'm pretty sure it's just Onigafuchi. Sorry, Hito, whatever. Yeah, how do you pronounce this? Hitokui? It just is human eating. Like you
Okay.
can put the kanji for eating after everything, and then just say like this is a plant eater or a, I don't know, a skull eater. That's a name somewhere probably.
Skull Eater is a enemy in Final Fantasy V.
There you go. Probably is called whatever the word for skull is, and then kui.
So that's interesting. So you could just like put a random noun.
Yeah, pretty much. I love that Japanese works like that with a lot of words. Like you can just put the what is it called, the gerund form of a verb after a noun, and that just means the thing that does that noun.
They used to call that being demoned away, or onikakushi. Demoned away. It was the first time I had heard such a peculiar phrase. However, I felt something slightly ominous from this horrifying tale of demons abducting people in order to eat them. So I have a weird question. Is superstition, like, in this time period, like, alive and well in Japanese culture? Because they seem to take this shit a bit seriously, from a modern standpoint. I mean, I know that at this point, it's like half a century since the setting.
I mean, even today, depending on where you go, probably yeah. I mean, that's the whole. Okay, like I'm simplifying a lot, and again, I'm no scholar on Japanese culture, but from what I've heard, even today, it's not like unusual that you would see, for example, communities in the more rural parts having shrines for like local deities and stuff like that. That are given offerings or whatever. I don't know what you actually give them. I think it's like little these little things where you put smelling incense and stuff in there, and they hold festivals for them. Like you know the stupid penis god festival in Japan. That's one of them. That's just a one that you might have heard of. But there's a lot of like regional deities in Japan because of that's kind of the whole point of
Yeah,
Shintoism.
Shintoism.
Yeah, exactly. So even nowadays, you it's not like people like okay, it's kind of like a cultural thing, I guess, to tell fairy tales in the same way that it is in Germany, except German fairy tales are always very brutal and don't really teach you all that much outside of like how to basically be a good child, or otherwise you die. And in Japan, the fairy tales are more like there was this yokai in the mountain, and they're just treated in those stories like normal things that exist next to humans, not like gods or anything really, just like weird things in the mountains. And so I don't know. I guess if you'd grow up in that kind of situation, you would, especially maybe in the 80s, 70s, where Japan was less maybe worldwide connected to other cultures, you maybe might not find it that weird.
I mean, I guess. Like, it's... How do I put it? English superstition has not been that strong since... the last time I can remember, like, England being a strong in terms of superstition is actually in Arthur Conan Doyle's time.
That was like the 1880s, or
Yeah, particularly
Okay.
because there was a craze of believing in fairies back then. Which,
right? I remember that with the pictures, right?
Yeah, and Arthur Conan Doyle himself was taken in by it.
Yeah, I remember that. People like buying fairy photos, things like that.
Yeah. But since then, I can't really recall any time where like superstitions had that big an influence on the English culture. So it's like a different point of view.
Yeah, I guess you could maybe compare it a little bit. Nah, not really, but it's like it's not like English culture was completely devoid of that kind of stuff. You had the UFO craze in the 60s, and there was like a sizable amount of people that really said, okay, it's not unlikely that aliens exist and that they found us and that we just don't know if they're watching us or not. But that's
Yeah,
US,
but
though.
I mean, I kind of don't count that as superstition. I count that as like I throw that in the same basket as like conspiracy theories or like cryptozoology.
Yeah, cryptozoology is a good one as well. That's still around, right? I
I
mean,
bel
cryptozoology is kind of superstition.
Sort of. It's a more modern take on it, I guess. Where instead of like, oh, I implicitly believe this like little spirit thing exists and it's going to do either good things if I give it a like puddle of milk, or it's going to do bad things if I don't take off all my clothes in the middle of the forest and put them on backwards. Instead of doing that, it's now like I implicitly believe that this weird life form exists, and I'm fucking going out to find it.
Hmm.
There may only be one me, but there are 7 billion humans, and we can expend a few of them in search of the fucking Yeti.
Ah, yes.
But yeah. Look, you know how there's that common phrase, spirited away? When people suddenly go missing one day, they call it that. When the same thing happens around here, they call it being demoned away. How does that old tale relate to the matter at hand? Oh no, there's no direct relationship. I'm just making some small talk here. It's just... Ka-thump, ka-thump. The car shook. At some point, the gravel road had changed to a paved one. It's just what? But around here, the phrase demoned away is somewhat of a code for disappearances and kidnappings. I just thought I'd mention that. I don't know if this has anything to do with the kidnapping of the minister's grandson. Well, there's no deep meaning behind it. It's just, there's that little bit of history. Oni Kakushi. Human-eating demons coming down to the foothills and abducting their prey. I almost said demon-eating humans, which is an entirely different concept.
Ah, yes. Human Hemizawa could need some of those.
Well, since they all have demon blood, by definition, like if there's any cannibalism, it's humans eating demons. But yeah, I'm surprised that doesn't get seen like more often, like a human eating a demon to get their powers.
That would be cool, yeah.
Although at that point, like you're committing cannibalism of a human-like object, so like it's questionable as to who
Yeah.
the real demon is. Like, you can't really do that with being a moral person, I think. Like, eating something that looks like a person is rough.
What about gingerbread man?
I mean, gingerbread men don't look like people.
They don't.
They don't.
Oh.
They are extremely abstract.
Are you telling me you don't look like a gingerbread man?
I'm telling you that I don't look like a gingerbread man, yes.
Damn.
Morals are for losers. The the tagline of Higurashi 1 through 3. Then, in order to cancel the dam project that threatened to submerge the village they lived in, did they demon away the minister's grandson? Then, had they already made an example out of the minister's grandson and eaten him alive? It's a bit of an interesting old tale, isn't it? If you set foot into the demon's village without reason, you'll be promptly captured and eaten alive. So don't go near Onigafuchi. Kids these days wouldn't have these superstitions, would they? Even amongst older folk in Okinomiya born in the Meiji era, there's quite a few who wouldn't heed these warnings. Hinamizawa was feared by the people in the area. I recalled that piece of information I heard from the Prefectural Public Safety Division. In any case, we're in the boonies out here. It's kind of expected that there'd be some superstitions around. Somebody from Tokyo like you, Akasaka-san, probably couldn't even begin to imagine it, could you? The man-eating demons, as a price for violating the sanctity of their village, kidnapped the minister's grandson and swallowed him whole. That ludicrous idea flew through my head. It was so absurd, I was half disgusted with myself. Oishi was just teasing me. Stupid. It was all really so stupid.
Baka? Oh no.
No, I don't think it's baka.
No, it's not. Kudaranai, it means like, yeah, it's stupid or useless. Worthless. Worthless is good.
Yeah, but worthless is a lot, it's a lot stronger in English, I feel like.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Kudaranai is pretty strong. It's like, if it's a Kudaranai Hanashi, it's like a worthless story, like, fuck this guy for even telling me this. He should be taking this more seriously. That kind of vibe.
Yeah, he's kind of like just muddying the waters at this point.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, by then, I may have already been seized by the curse of that dubious village. For me to realise that would take a little more time.
Position.
Hey, new tips, 4 of them. That's a lot. So let's hit us with a save. And then we'll view our tips.
Nice.
Phone call with Yuki. Yuki is his wife. Oh, really? It's tough when it's such a sudden assignment. Please be careful. Where are you headed? You're already there? Whenever I headed out on an assignment, she would ask where. Not just Yuki, but anybody would have asked the same question. If it was a cold place, she would urge me to pack a thick jacket. If it was far, she'd warn me to be careful on the drive over. It was just normally It was just normal, everyday concern that led to asking such an obvious thing. I felt sad that I couldn't answer such a run-of-the-mill question. Sorry. It's something that you can't talk about, isn't it? Please be careful. Sorry, Yuki. Oh hey, I think this is a new BGM.
Yeah, that sounds pretty new.
It's vibe time. Okay, that's probably enough. At some point, you started apologizing right away. Even though when you first started your job, you were all gung-ho about it. This actually ties back, of course, to the theme of people just saying they're sorry a lot in Higurashi. And usually shit is going south when they do.
Are you sure that's not just like Japanese culture?
No, it's, there's always that moment in Higurashi where a character will say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, over and over again.
True.
While they're also, like, tacitly going mad.
True.
Like, begging forgiveness is a bit of a theme. Yuki laughed as though she had realised something. At times like this, Yuki had the magical power to see right through me. It's already been quite a while since I was admitted to the hospital. Are you finally getting lonely? Don't tease me. I'm too old to get lonely. Oh, really? You actually like to be doted on, don't you? Don't you start getting a little faint of heart when I'm not around? Aw, jeez. I can see the little devil horn sprouting from your head right now. You've always been like this. You can't hide it, you can't hide it. If I don't play with you, you get all lonely. I can hear your tail wagging over the phone. This side of Yuki wasn't something you could guess existed from seeing her usual modest behaviour, and it was something she didn't show to anybody else but me. Normally I'd poke her to hide my embarrassment and bring an end to the conversation, but I couldn't do that over the phone. Of course, Yuki was clever. She was teasing me because of that. I wonder when I figured out that giving you grief was this much fun. Give me a break. In any case, it's good to hear you so lively. I know, right? Did I cheer you up? I had called Yuki to keep her from feeling lonely while she was by herself in the hospital room. Of course, that was nothing more than a pretense that I, being shy, had come up with. It seemed that Yuki had long since seen through that act. Yeah. Please phone again. When I'm not feeling up to it, I'll get my father to talk to you. Although, if you're talking with my father, I get the feeling that you'd be standing at attention on the other side of the line. For a while longer, Yuki kept teasing me without letting me end the call. Ah, that's cute. A record of opening remarks. Chairman XX, members of the XX Party, congratulations are due as we are celebrating 25 years since our founding. These past 25 years have seen much growth in XX Prefecture. The once quiet scenery of nothing but fields now has seen the opening of a new stop for the bullet train, and with the development of the highway, we've seen the rebirth of a modern city bursting with youthful energy. We've reaped the benefits of new businesses and industry, and with the special reverence the residents of the XX prefecture have for time-honoured traditions, history and culture, business and industry. With these ideals in harmony, they have accomplished in growing their city into one of Japan's foremost metropolises. Of course, the development of XX prefecture couldn't have happened without the growth of XX Party. We are resolved to see every one of our campaign promises to fruition, reaching our targets definitively and expediently, like arrows fired from a bow. With these arrows as the fundamental bases of our party, our members have sought to pierce the obstructions preventing the happiness of residents of XX Prefecture. But I do believe that everybody here is unlike an ordinary arrow. While being as unfaltering and straightforward, we have not neglected in seeking solutions that conform to the current day and age, while also keeping an eye on the future. An arrow, once loosed, can only fly to its destination. Everybody here, however, is no simple arrow. Even once loosed from the bow, without neglecting our studies, while employing new methods, and implementing more effective and flexible ideas, thus being able to change trajectories mid-flight. We are magical arrows! They are the magical girls.
Can I see the Japanese version?
You may.
Yeah, that's what it says. Stupid.
The modern age marches ever forward. Sometimes it marches faster than the time taken from planning to execution. The following part was not in the script. It is thought to have been ad-libbed by the minister. For example, there have recently been numerous problems with the Hinamizawa power plant project. Rather than forcing through the project solely because it was decided upon by the government, it is necessary to reflect on and adjust to the ever-changing needs of the residents, the region, and the next generation. The protests by local residents that surround the Hinamizawa Dam, these are also the will of the people of XX Prefecture. If you feel that there is no need to listen just because the project has already been finalised, then you do nothing more than shed a poor light on Japan's post-war democracy. The following is as per the script. For the lasting happiness of the citizens of Japan and the residents of XX Prefecture, please consider these policies thoroughly. I believe, however, that we have all gained something from the flexibility and foresight of the XX Party. I've taken up much of your time. However, allow me to say the following to celebrate the 25th anniversary of our founding. Chairman XX, members of the XX Party in attendance, thank you very much for today. From the opening remarks of the XX Party Prefectural Forum and 25th Anniversary Celebration. So here we have what seems to indicate that the minister is being controlled in some way by people interested in the dam project, since it wasn't in his script before. So gears and fire and the taste of honey.
Ooh.
New BGM again?
He's really going on a lot with this one.
We being spoiled, bruh.
Mm.
The world is filled with people blessed with relationships. Of course, that doesn't mean that everyone is connected to each other. It's obvious that on the other side of the planet, there are people laughing and crying who can't possibly have an effect on you. However, in the extremely limited community of the neighborhood, that sort of connection is just a matter of fact. It's quite possible that a single remarkable event could have massive consequences inside a small community. If you were to increase that in scale, a perfect stranger on the other side of a globe might become enough of a legend to have an effect on our lives. Well, it's not always that way. Like I said at the beginning, the links of people basically aren't that relevant in the grand scheme of things. Whether some household nearby is having steak or croquettes doesn't matter to me. When I put on my shoes, it doesn't matter to anybody whether I put on the right one first or the left. This much the average person can understand. But actually, in reality, this is the truth. The bonds between people are quite well defined. It's not just a matter of distance, of being far or near. For example, let's say that person A's actions have some effect on me. Even then, person B's actions could have absolutely no consequence on my life. The reverse also holds true. Just because my actions affect person A, that doesn't always mean that they affect person B as well. Let's put it bluntly. If the bonds between people are like gears in a machine, the gear that represents me meshes with some people, but is isolated from others. There are some who would try arguing against this. Those people would bring up the example of gears in a clock. Each gear indeed only directly meshes with one or two others. However, if you rotate one gear, the one next to it is moved, which connects to the next one, and the next. In the end, all the gears are moving. There is a logic behind this, more than enough to convince the average person. Why is the argument convincing? The answer is simple. The relationships between people are ambiguous and can only be described conceptually. How the gears are connected and their movements are chained together can't be used as a fundamental explanation, so it throws a wet blanket on that argument. So for people who like that explanation, I'll use the example of a clock again to refute it. First of all, to say that this world is a singular clock would be wrong. That is, there isn't only one clock. There exist many clocks in this world, each counting their own time. If you think about it, the idea that this world is just one big clock is the height of arrogance. Even if you use the analogy of gears to explain human relationships, then you should be able to explain it using an analogy of multiple clocks unrelated to a simple gear. Neighbours A and B. A is a gear in the same clock as me, so it's best to remain civil. B is a gear in a different clock, so he doesn't really matter to me at all. That's the kind of clear distinction I'm talking about. You want to say I'm being fallacious? Then let's change the analogy to something more familiar, so you can understand. You've probably heard the phrase, "a fire on the opposite shore," sometime in your life, no?
I haven't.
Neither have I. But let's roll with it, I guess.
Can you give me the Japanese?
You may have it.
Yep, that's a fire on the other shore.
For example, if your neighbour's house was on fire, you'd probably try and help put it out, wouldn't you? It'd be awful if the fire spread and burned down your own house, after all. But what if that fire was in a town on the opposite side of a river? Would you still go out of your way to help? You wouldn't, would you? Even though it would be the wrong thing to do, there's no way the fire could spread to your own house. Even if it turned into a huge conflagration, there's no relation between the houses that will spread fire to yours and those that won't. With this basic example, you should be able to see the difference between gears that are or aren't related to your own. Having said that, there's still a lot to think about, even without a river to divide it. After all, it's not a spatial problem like being on the other side of a river, is it? So,
Okay, thanks for that opinion then.
that was kind of weird. I sort of get where the gears and the fire came from, but there was no taste of honey. Was that
That
just
is very true.
was that just fucking omitted? Do you have
Maybe it's
any
implied somehow.
as someone who is interested in philosophy, Bosque, do you have any opinion on this?
I mean that what what immediately came to my mind is something that I'm working with right now, which is like complex systems, you know, this kind of theory of how much stuff at once can you explain by abstracting away from the lower level stuff that instantiates it. So like this is the kind of things you maybe would do in this kind of description of like what a community does, is that you describe kind of dynamics between, I don't know, for example, in Hinamizawa, powerful families that really don't depend on how exactly these families are structured, but more what kind of role they play in the system entirely, and that really doesn't depend on any individual person's choice. And it seemed like it was kind of going towards that at the beginning, because it was like, okay, a lot of the times what moves you or what defines what your next choice will be is not your own choice, but rather you know, the circumstances of your neighbors, what's happening around you. But then it kind of went into a completely different direction, and rather making this argument against somebody that it doesn't make sense to think in this manner about everyone on the planet, but rather only about communities. And so like I'm not really sure what to say. I guess that was my initial interpretation at the beginning, but then at the end it just seemed to be like, okay, yeah, communities will hold together, and they kind of, some of them might have to do that up to extreme measures, because you would rather, you know, you'd rather, you're kind of wired, the longer you are as a community, you kind of get more and more wired to just help the community survive, rather than do the right thing, so to speak.
Yeah, it seems to be, to me, the point seems to be that, like, they're trying to make the point that not everything is related in the world. Like, there is an abstraction between, like, in the context of, because I think it might be, like, kind of a mystery novel tell kind of thing, where
Yeah, definitely.
it's like, not, it is basically a nudge from the author to say, you know, not everything is related to each other. Like, sometimes there are just cogs which are outside of the personal sphere of influence of this mystery. And they
you
don't
mean like
always...
as in the storytelling as well?
Yeah. So it might be
Okay.
something like that. But
I thought it was a hint towards like what might be one of the factors that determine why Hinamizawa the residents do what they do, is that they have this giant history and everyone is just kind of, because it was maybe so traumatic or whatever, it was just burned into the kind of everyday life that villagers have, that they implicitly really feel very, very strongly for keeping the village alive and for keeping everything, going the way that the village wants it to, without any particular person directing it. And I might have said that before already, but that's the kind of theory I still find the most plausible, is that, like, you saw this in the last chapter, where Mion and Reina kind of covered for Keiichi in a very obvious way, without when they fully knew that he wasn't at the festival. That doesn't explain everything, but at the same time, that might also tie in with what you took from this, is that the author's saying, okay, there are some explanations here that you can give on a, like, empirical science level that makes sense in the world we live in, but there might be some factors of the story that are just deliberately nonsensical and they're not part of this entire gear system.
I mean, the other like interpretation of it is, oh god, I've forgotten the word. It should be a word that I know, but it's not coming directly to mind. It is the what's the name for the philosophy of trying to make the most people happy possible? Utilitarianism, yeah. So it might be a spin on that, where like, it's this kind of who can we afford to sacrifice thing. Like, we can pick cogs that are outside of our own personal machine, and sacrificing those will not affect us.
That's a very good point. That might be in there as well, yeah.
But usually, what I find with things like these is that they tend to reveal their intent with the passage of time in the novel. Because there are a lot of things like that in Chusotsu, weren't there? Where, like, things would be set up far in advance.
Dude, if I remember, man.
It's like, I do kind of wish that we had VODs of Chusotsu. Those were fun streams. So the last, am I going Machine Lord? Am I Robot Man?
No, you're fine to me.
Okay, it's meta then.
Sorry, meta.
Rip. But yeah, time for our last tips, and then I'm going to call it for tonight, since we got to the end of the chapter. So, the chick in the trunk. The car had stopped, but he didn't know any more than that. For not only was he blindfolded, but locked in the trunk of the car. How could people become this powerless just by being robbed of their sight? He absolutely wouldn't have known this without experiencing it firsthand. He soon realised that it was pointless to try and undo his bonds, with the confines of the trunk quickly making him lightheaded. He had no choice but to let this mild torture dull his senses. That's why, when the car stopped and the unpleasant vibration ceased as the engine was killed, he couldn't help but delude himself that he was being set free, even though nothing had been resolved in reality. Of course, he was soon removed from that delusion. He strained his ears when he heard one of the men who had abducted him, and an older man he was hearing for the first time, strike up a conversation. "Nice to see you. The chick is in the trunk. He struggled so much that he's probably exhausted right now, but there's not a mark on him, just as you ordered." "Oh, must have been a handful." The trunk opened, letting in a blast of fresh, cool air. even though up until now he had just been thinking of getting out of that stuffy trunk. When it was actually opened, he suddenly became uneasy. Enough so that he wished that the lid of the trunk would once again close, separating himself from them. Suddenly, somebody stroked his head. Of course, since he was blindfolded, he couldn't tell if the hand was petting him or simply evaluating how easy it would be to remove his scalp. Unable to tell the difference, he could only freeze as he imagined the worst-case scenario. Poor little bugger. He's shaking. Just stay calm for a bit. The older man said that kindly as he gently stroked the boy's head. This must be real tough for you. But you see, your Gramps is a nice man. He'll help you soon enough. Having heard nothing but the average standard dialect his whole life, the older man's distinct intonation left a deep impression on the boy. Aposke, how good are you at evaluating Japanese dialects?
Better than I would have expected myself to be.
Okay, so I am going to place an immediate bet on Kansai, because that's the only other one that I know. But let's see what it is.
If it's not Kansai or what's the other one called? If it's not Kansai or the other one, basically, then I won't find out. Honni. Oh god, Honni. Dangana Onmen. Oh my god.
This is like when you go into the suburbs of France and you hear them not speaking Parisian French for the first time. And it's just a completely fucking different wild language.
Yeah, it's not Kansai. It's I've seen it before. I don't know what it's called. It's like this thing where for example, in front of every M, or like, I don't know, it's like these weird sounds that you make like with the lips and a bit of the throat, like M or G. I don't know, G. But this kind of stuff, in front of those were sounds, they always put N's for some reason. So it's like, instead of ome, which is like a very rude way to say your, they say onme. Or instead of sugu, they say sungu. Sungu. I don't even know how to actually make that, but I don't know what it's called. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know it, Mina?
I know that this happens, but yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that, and yeah. But sure does happen.
Oh, it might be Kyushu dialect.
Oops. Sorry, I accidentally closed the thread.
Fine.
So, how do I get this back? Open split view. There we go. That will, oh shit. Yeah, it turns out that pressing escape is something I shouldn't do.
Okay.
But that will be, you'll see that on the VOD.
Isn't there like a description where Hinamizawa Village is supposed to be?
I'm not sure. Maybe on the wiki, but I'm not sure where Shishibone prefecture.
It's in Gifu, so that would be like north middle.
But either way, let's continue on. But he had no idea what he was saying.
Same.
For your gramps to register as meaning your grandfather took a while to process. Wow, that's longer in Japanese.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I just said, right? Onme no Jisan. It's kind of weird.
Eventually, The hand that was stroking his head loosened the blindfold. Can't keep his eyes covered. If he splits his face open, it'd be bad. And with that, we might as well take out the gag. He can't breathe like that.
Breathe.
It'll be trouble if he yells. Leave him to us. Jeez, you guys don't know how to treat somebody. The main family said no rough stuff. You better remember that well. Yeah, we won't do anything stupid. As long as the kid cooperates, that is. The man's hand prodded roughly and repeatedly at the boy's head. A rugged hand, unlike the affectionate one that had been stroking his head before. Just stay cooperative. If you struggle, there's no guarantee what will happen. That cliched threat was literally beaten into his head. And with that, that will be enough for tonight.
Damn.
Another fairly short one, but, you know, I think like an hour and a half is a decent length.
That's true.
But yeah,
thanks,
thank you all
Green.
for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the stream, and I will see you next
always.
time.